My mission is
to hold up a mirror to remind people of their own greatness.
success is
Being able to come at the end of life having lived a fulfilled life rather than a life chasing achievement and success.
which brings me to the next sentence, which is fulfillment is
Fulfillment is an inner sense of satisfaction knowing that you walked a path of truth and integrity and owned the mistakes and were okay with them along the way.
failure is
Your capital. It's your biggest lessons that you learn from that you pay the most for, so you should value the most.
I get inspiration from
A higher source of intelligence and understanding that every single person I meet can teach me something.
I love dogs because
They are the epitome of unconditional love.
which world leader would you like to take to dinner?
Nelson Mandela, if he was still around.
Oh, we have this in common.
Yeah, and not many of the ones that currently are.
Definitely someone that I admire in so many ways. Yeah. My favorite place in the world is
Home,
where is home?
wherever I'm at.
As you were speaking, it also made me think about, because you say the good opinion of other people. What about the bad opinion of other people? I mean, you have this experience which is very surprising by a person like you. I mean, you spent 6 months in prison
Yep.
for contempt,
Mhm.
from what I've read. And I guess, prison in our society, and especially probably in Great Britain, is seen something that is like, going very low. How did you deal with the bad opinion of people while you were inside or when you got out?
Well, luckily, as I said, I've had a lot of experience in not being affected by other people's opinions because I star in my own movie. And that's paramount. And when I went in as the only non-criminal in Britain's most violent jail for
On top of everything,
6
yeah.
months. Yeah, never been accused of a crime, never been charged or arrested, still don't have a criminal record.
I'm actually just on the as a side note. Why were you in this type of prison? I mean, for a crime like yours, you shouldn't be actually in the most violent.
Well, I said there was no crime. I mean, it was contempt in a civil action.
And even
in a business
why
deal.
were you in this?
It was the closest to the court.
Oh.
So I should have been transferred within a week to a holiday camp type, I mean, there are no prisons for civil prisoners, right? But there are obviously low risk categories. But because of how archaic the system is and how fundamentally flawed and degenerative it is, it took several months to process me. Now, I look at it as a perfect gift. In fact, when I went in using the movie metaphor, I wrote to my students in my first letter and says, guys, don't worry about me. I'm simply on location for 6 months filming the prison scene in my movie. And every movie needs some sort of, action, adventure, drama. A good movie requires everything. You want to leave the cinema and say, wow, now that is a movie I would pay to watch again. You don't pay good money to watch James Bond rescue a kitten out of a tree for 90 minutes, right? That's not going to work. So for me, when I was sentenced in contempt, which, as I say, is a whole different conversation, and yes, clearly there were lessons for me to learn there as well. I realized immediately that I had a big seminar a couple of weeks later that we just spent $50,000 on advertising to promote, to sell $50,000 worth of tickets to. So now people want their money back, and I lost everything. I came out of prison 4 years ago, $250,000 in debt with no business, no credit rating, no nothing. That was an exciting time because I'd never dug myself out of a hole that deep. Like, wow, this is going to be fun. Let's see where it goes. And today I've got a 6-figure-a-week business, back from scratch. Now, when it comes to going inside, how I saw myself, my identity was a huge part of that. If I saw myself as a prisoner, I would most likely adopt the role of victim.
That would have been my question. Why weren't you in the role of the victim? I mean, you
Because
were.
I know where that goes. Why would I do that to myself when I have the ability to choose? So I looked at it and said, okay, I've been very fortunate over the last quarter century that millions of people have benefited from my work or my videos online or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. And maybe the people that could benefit the most never get to see that or hear it because they're in somewhere like prison. So if the universe, or whatever you want to call it, wants to send me in to be able to help people to demonstrate that I can walk my talk, what an exciting adventure that is. So no, I'm not going in as a prisoner. I'm going in as a secret agent of change. Mm-hmm. And that was the attitude I went in with. In fact, before I was given my cell, I had the appointment with the doctor. And after a few minutes of conversation for the medical, he leans in, he says, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." He says, "Are you undercover?" And I laughed. I says, "Why do you ask?" It was actually the second person that mentioned that. Yeah. He says, in 20 plus years of being a prison doctor, he'd never seen anybody so happy on their first ever day in prison. And I told him why I thought I was there, to be able to help people, maybe help change the system. I don't know, it was a new experience. I'd only ever seen stuff on TV. You know, if you ever seen the film Prison Break, that was kind of the prison I was in. Yeah? Same kind of layout, same setup. And so I went in with an exciting mission. And to cut a long story short, I ended up getting a lot of the prisoners off drugs. I was stopping suicides. I redesigned the intake system to help new prisoners adjust and reduce violence between the wings. I won a national award while I was in there for the work that I did. The legacy of that is now being used in prisons all over the world, affecting thousands of prisoners every month. I mean, I couldn't have designed a more amazing adventure to be able to do. But I know if I had have chosen at the beginning to be a victim because I cared about what everyone in the press was saying, what my rivals were saying, all of the people that wrote me off, if I gave that any energy, I'd have probably, gone into depression and never have achieved the magic that was able to achieve because I adopted a different role as the star of my own movie, as the secret agent of change.
Tune in next week for a very special episode of the Recursive podcast. Irina welcomes the serial entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and author, Peter Sage. And if you are just as passionate about innovation as we are, hit subscribe for the Recursive podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. We're everywhere.